stream. Ooh. Might check. Okay. Oh, I got this on mute. Take this off mute. Okay. Oh, that's fucking loud. Shit. Why is this shit so loud? You don't get what you. Perfect. X-Men, yeah. This came out 2016 as well. 32 minutes. Okay, knock this out the way. I'm late as hell. Still got 1, 2, 3. Skipping that one. 1, 2, 3. The Deadpool. 3. So we have 4. Oh my god. There's so many damn X-Men movies. Shit. Alright, well, we're smoking. Watch this Marvel reaction. Yeah. 101. Oh, take that off. Yeah, shit is too sharp.
I just flip the switch.
Flip.
I don't know nobody else that's doing this. Body start to drop. Now they wanna know me since I hit the top. Hey, this a rolling, not a stop. Why shit don't never stop. Just the flow that got the block high. Then I see the bills up out of the bank. The plug in the media play. Shout it to you straight. Look, I just flip the switch.
Flip.
I don't know nobody else that's doing this. Body start to drop. Now they wanna know me since I hit the top. Hey, this a rolling, not a stop. Why shit don't never stop. Just the flow that got the block high. Super hot. Give me my respect.
Give me my respect.
I just took it left like on every deck. Bitch, I moved through London with the Euro step. Got a sneaker deal and I ain't gonna sweat. That's because I'm gone. I done gone. I go from 6 to 20.
My fucking ass shirt, bro. Whatever, it's useless.
Niggas pulling gimmies cause they scared of rap. Funny how they shook. I go from 6 to 20, feel like I'm LeBron. Serving up a pack. Niggas pulling gimmies cause they scared of rap. Funny how they shook. Pulling back the curtain by myself, take a look. Hey, I'm a bar spitter. I'm a hard hitter. Yeah, I'm light skinned, but I'm still in.
Hi, Chris. That's the real Chris. I don't know who that is. Who is that? I follow this person. I don't follow this person. Oh, you're watching me? Hi. Let me drop you a follow. You got 100 people over there? Okay, I'm a little nervous. I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. I'm sorry, this music's pretty loud, I'm sure. That's my shit though. I'm doing good. How are you? I just dropped you a follow. We're about to do this reaction to X-Men. X-Men Apocalypse, to be exact. I'll be watching this. I do content like this. I keep you tab up. Like thick mercs. They said that's the real Chris. I'm sorry, I don't know who that is. I'm still like getting around to know everybody on Kick, honestly. I don't do too much networking on Kick. I need to. I definitely need to. Thank you. W follow. I'm just smoking. Hey, like the camera be losing focus with all this smoke. Alright, my to this YouTube introduction. In 1 minute. So I'm supposed to be playing a whole bunch of shit today. So I need to get my ass on the go. Like right now. It's like hella smoke. Hella smoke. Alright. I'm live on everything besides TikTok. I'm a real nerd. You guys couldn't tell by now. We're a nerd over here. Real Marvel nerd. Nerd enough, because I still don't know all the shit that be going on in Marvel. Yeah, shy. Got a keyboard with batteries now, and that shit is already telling me change batteries. After I just got it yesterday. I'm like, that's great. That's great. That's great. Not what I fucking needed, but whatever. I had to pay for it. Oh, I have to switch these. Where is it? Okay. That's still there. Okay. Hi YouTube, back with another reaction video. So continuing from the X-Men series, what is next is X-Men Apocalypse, came out in 2016. So also the same year as the previous reaction that I did for Deadpool that came out the same year. So 10 years ago. So yeah, let's get into it.
Want to become a cybersecurity engineer? If you're tired of your current career, even though you're getting paid well, and you want to switch careers into IT so you can have more...
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Boss, and this is a breakdown of 2016's X-Men Apocalypse. This is the 9th installment of our X-Men Snicked rewatch, as we go back to all 13 of the Fox X-Men and Deadpool films ahead of Wolverine's Mutant Homecoming and Deadpool and Wolverine in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Coming out the same year as the first Deadpool film, and being what director Bryan Singer considered the end of the trilogy that started by First Class, this movie just had a lot to live up to, and did it live up to it? Well, you be the judge. But with a post-credits scene that tied directly into the debate of whether or not Wade Wilson got his powers from Wolverine, it still plays an important role in our rewatch for that reason and a number of other reasons we'll get to in this video. So let's break down Apocalypse scene by scene for all the Easter eggs, details you never spotted, and stuff that could come back in Deadpool and Wolverine. And to celebrate this X-Men rewatch, we have these special Xavier Institute shirts, and grabbing one of these is among the best ways you can support New Rockstars. And we have a special link where you can get these shirts, and check it out from the link in the description. Okay, in the opening seconds, the X and the Fox logo lingers again, and this happens in pretty much all the films that Bryan Singer was involved with. There's also that X-Men score again, playing at the end of the normal Fox music. Now, the title of this film was originally going to be X-Men Age of Apocalypse, after the comic of the same name, but it was changed in order to avoid comparisons to Avengers Age of Ultron and Transformers Age of Extinction. I think they started to figure out that, hey, if these movies are just like 2 or 2.5 hours, they're not really ages of anything. The film opens like the previous ones did with Charles Xavier's narration, except now it's James McAvoy's Charles, not Patrick Stewart's.
Mutants, born with extraordinary abilities, and yet still they are children, stumbling in the dark.
Charles sets up some of Apocalypse's backstory, saying that if a mutant is given powers beyond imagination, they may think they are meant to rule the world. Now, in the comics, SZN, which Marvel Comics writers believe translated to the first one in Arabic, although the order of the words is wrong, so it really translates to something like 7 lights instead. SZN was considered the first mutant on Earth, or one of them, and it's considered one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe. He sees himself as the father of mutant kind. Created by writer Louise Simonson and artist Jackson Guise, SZN at one point encountered the Celestials and became aware of the fact that humanity might one day be judged unworthy and destroyed. Because of this, he became obsessed with the idea of survival of the fittest, and unlike Magneto, he applies this equally to humans and mutants. Weak mutants must also be destroyed to make room for what comes next. In the movie, he's never actually called by the word apocalypse, although he does say he's been called by many things over the years. The camera flies over sand dunes in the Nile Valley in 3600 BCE to a large pyramid with a symbol of an Ankh inside of the letter A. This is the symbol for Hashir SZN, Apocalypse's followers, who are tasked with protecting him and doing his bidding. He's transported by a litter, usually reserved for rulers or divinities in ancient Egypt, and he's flanked by his 4 horsemen: death, famine, pestilence, and war. They wear gold masks of various Egyptian gods. These 2 co-conspirators share a look as Apocalypse is being brought inside the pyramid. Singer said that these opening scenes and design were inspired by the 1955 film Land of the Pharaohs. Stunt actor Monique Gannerton plays Death. She's done stunt work on a ton of action movies like Avengers Endgame and Infinity War after this, usually doubling for taller actresses. Old Apocalypse is played by Burge Garabedian, but they transfer his consciousness into the body of a mutant with the ability to heal, played by Oscar Isaac. Interesting how healing ability is just kind of an important ability, whether it's Green or Deadpool or this guy. The technology they use to do this, I have to say, looks very similar to the Celestial tech as it's depicted in the MCU Eternals film. In the comics, the Celestials helped Apocalypse become even more powerful than he already was, and he had many powers, including telepathy and telekinesis, which he demonstrated at the end of Days of Future Past. He could also reshape his own body, his size, his density at will. Both of these powers are removed here, although we do get an homage to his ability to make himself big when he's inside Charles's mind. In the film, he gets multiple abilities by moving from body to body. Singer clarified his powers by saying that he can, quote, imbue other mutants and heighten their powers and abilities beyond anything they ever imagined. Secondly, he can shield from psychic powers. He can form shields so that it makes it harder for a psychic like Xavier to tap in and get them, and he can change the inorganic molecules of things. That's a lot. At one point during the comics run, The 12, Apocalypse did transfer his essence into the body of Nate Gray, a powerful mutant that Mr. Sinister created using the DNA of Cyclops and Jean Grey. So this transfer is successful, but a rogue faction of followers trap Apocalypse inside the collapsing pyramid. His horsemen do their best to protect him. At one point, Death folds a guy in on himself and crunches him into a human pretzel, but they are ultimately all buried, with Death managing to surround Apocalypse in an energy sarcophagus that lets him sleep but not die. The camera zooms out of this wreckage to an X on the top of the destroyed pyramid. Unlike the previous opening credit sequences, which showed DNA and mutation, this shows humanity's advancement. And showing this coming from the chamber containing Apocalypse implies that everything the world has become has been shaped both by humans and mutants. We see these Egyptian columns and an Eye of Horus in the center of an X. The camera zooms in through the eye into a hallway lined with Egyptian statues and masks. Then it spins clockwise as it goes down the hallway and swoops through a circle into the next area. An arrow flies alongside the camera to show one of man's earliest weapons. These figures along the side here could be the Persian immortals, and that building in the center looks like it's part of the Great Wall. Then the arrows fly by some coins, showing some of the earliest forms of currency. Then we see a stone statue of Jesus carrying the cross to Calvary, and more advanced arrows fly by. The feathers now replaced by metal. There are images of Christian crosses in a church. On a wall is a painting of Henry VIII, so now we must be in the 16th century. This is Hans Holbein the Younger's painting The Ambassadors, which was painted around 1533. There's also the Mona Lisa, which was painted sometime between 1503 and 1519. The camera passes through the chamber of a revolver, so the weaponry is continuing to advance, and then we travel alongside a train, which gives way to airplanes. These look like World War II era fighter planes, and now that we are in the 20th century, the 20th Century Fox logo appears on screen. There's Nazi flags and other iconography, missiles being fired, one of them destroying a swastika. There's the Soviet Union image of the hammer and sickle. $100 bills float around everywhere, and we head into the 1980s, the era of money and excess, and Pedro Pascal memes. And then we see the Twin Towers still standing. The title flashes on screen, and then it zooms all the way out once again to show the X on the door leading to Cerebro, like in the previous films. In a high school in 1980.
Awaken to a world of wonder in Final Fantasy XIV Online.
In Ohio, a class learns about the events that we saw in Days of Future Past at the 1973 Paris Peace Talks. The newspaper they look at from the time reads, "Peace turns into chaos, pandemonium in Paris." There are stills from that movie accompanying the headline. This teacher is played by Ali Sheedy, who got her start in 80s movies like John Hughes' The Breakfast Club. X-Men producer Lauren Schuler Donner has mentioned that the original plot for First Class was about teen mutants in school, but one of the reasons it didn't work was because it felt too much like a John Hughes movie. So the events of Days of Future Past changed the timeline for all X-Men films that preceded it, at least as they were part of this series. And here we see that the world knows about the existence of mutants, and there are some that seem mostly okay with that. Teenage Scott Summers, played by Ty Sheridan, has some problems with his eyes and excuses himself to go to the bathroom. This bathroom scene where his powers kick in was originally written for the first X-Men film, but it was never filmed. In X-Men Origins, Scott got a headache in Spanish class, and his optic blast activated when he was being hunted by Sabretooth. This version of Scott is throwing tood. He's not yet the teacher's pet guy in charge that leads the X-Men. Ty Sheridan actually makes an uncredited cameo as Scott in Deadpool 2. In East Berlin, Mystique arrives at an underground cage match where mutants are forced to fight one another. This is reminiscent of the way Wolverine was introduced in the first film. There was also a similar fight during in Deadpool when Deadpool is hunting down Francis. In that one, the mutant fighters were wearing collars, and here the cage is electrified and surrounded by guys with guns to ensure their compliance. Angel defeats Fred Dukes the Blob in a comics accurate costume. Angel is now played here by Ben Hardy. In X-Men The Last Stand, a different version was played by Ben Foster. Kevin Durant played the previous iteration of the Blob in X-Men Origins. The next fighter to face Angel is Nightcrawler, played here by Cody Smith McPhee. He was originally cast as young James Howlett in X-Men Origins, but it conflicted with him shooting the road. Mystique flirts with the guard and then knocks him out, like we've seen her do many times before. I love how she starts out wearing this provocative dress, but once she completes her mission, she switches to a t-shirt and leather jacket. This is a woman who understands the male gaze, and she knows that it's easier to infiltrate when she's dressed in a way that makes men see her as a non-threatening sexual object. She rescues Nightcrawler. In the comics, she's actually his mother, and Azazel is his father. He recognizes her as a hero from the events of Days of Future Past, but she doesn't see herself that way. Meanwhile, in rural Poland, Eric is living off the grid and working at a factory, which is reminiscent of Bruce Banner working at the Pingodoce bottling plant in Rio in the beginning of The Incredible Hulk. Eric Lyncher now has a wife, Magda, and a daughter, Nina, who is a mutant with the ability to communicate with and control animals. She seems to be based on Magneto's daughter, Anya, from the comics, who died in a fire after a mob stopped him from saving her. Magneto ended up killing everyone in the city after that incident. This frightened Magda, who ran away and gave birth to two twins before dying. Those twins grew up to be Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. In their house, there are several deer figures, since deer seem to be Nina's favorite. As Eric sinks to her in bed, Nina wears a locket with the photos of her grandparents in it. This is the same locket that Eric will later use to murder the soldiers who come for him. In the Summers living room on the TV is just a program that seems to be a hand solving a Rubik's Cube, which is super weird, but you know, I guess very 80s. Lucas Till is back as Alex Summers, and this is the first movie where we see brothers Alex and Scott together. A deleted scene would have shown Alex trying to convince Scott to go to Xavier's school.
You can't lay in bed with your eyes closed forever.
He's so cute.
I know somebody who can help you control it.
At the school, Scott literally bumps into Jean Grey, played here by Game of Thrones' Sophie Turner. Charles reads to his class from T.H. White's The Once and Future King. He was teaching about this book in X2, and Magneto was reading it in his plastic prison. In this class is yet another version of Jubilee, played by Lana Condor this time around. 2 different actresses played her in the first and second films. Most of the other mutants in this class are unidentified extras. An extended version of the scene would have shown Jubilee discussing the novel.
Even the title
Once
and Future King means the past
like,
defines the future.
Sweet.
We're the sum
I could be
total of
very
all our experience.
Another extended scene just after this one would have shown Jean using her powers while practicing
Marvel,
archery,
reach out to
purposely
me.
aiming at a group
Disney,
of schoolmates and
somebody,
then curving the arrow so that
please.
it landed on the bullseye. As Charles shows Scott Summers around the grounds, he
Manifesting.
doesn't use his usual X-spoked wheelchair, although this one does have a small X in the middle of the spokes. Meanwhile, in Cairo, Moira McTaggart, Rose Byrne, looking very much like Laura Croft, follows some guys with Asher Insaba Nur sigils tattooed on their necks, and they raise Apocalypse. This causes an earthquake around the world, and Eric uses his powers to save a guy at his factory from getting squashed. He really has changed. The fact that he's living among humans and saving them makes what happens in his life after this all the more tragic. This was instinctual for him, but the look on his face as soon as he does says that he knows his peaceful days are numbered. A deleted scene would have shown Apocalypse waking up in an alley, killing a man so that he could steal his robes and use it to blend in. In the comics, the actual age of Apocalypse is an alternate reality set in Earth 295. In this, Peter Parker dies and never becomes Spider-Man. Namor, Clint, Thor, Carol Danvers, Frank Castle, Victor Von Doom, Susan Storm, and Ben Grimm also die. Gwen Stacy is alive in that reality, though. Oscar Isaac described wearing this Apocalypse costume as absolute hell. He said he was encased in glue, latex, and a 40-pound suit and had to wear a cooling mechanism at all times. The costume was also so squeaky and loud that he had to redub all of his lines, and he barely even got to see the other actors in the film because he had to be rolled into a cooling tent between takes. Then at the end of the day, it took him hours to scrape it all off of him. Yeah, I mean, they could have just gone with some blue makeup. Over the years, people have said he looks like Ivan Ooze from the Power Rangers film, and I can never get that image out of my head. At the X-Mansion, Jean has a nightmare, just like Wolverine did in the first film right before he stabbed Rogue. Jean's melting stuff off the walls, and even Charles feels psychic pain as he tries to calm her. We are seeing the Phoenix Force struggling to come out. Hank and Charles use Cerebro to investigate the activity in Egypt. This version of Cerebro is more advanced looking than when we saw it in Days of Future Past, but still not the same as in the first X-Men film 2000. I like that they take time to...
How does she have the Phoenix Force right then and there? If the whatever movie happened and they showed them going into space, I'm confused with that. I'm confused. I don't know.
Redesign it for each movie as the technology
Maybe
would
he'll
advance
explain
for
it,
each
I'm
decade.
sure.
As he locates Moira, Charles smiles sadly. He hasn't really seen her since he took away her memories of their time together at the end of First Class. Eric tries to get his wife and daughter out of this, but it is too late. The men who come from him aren't wearing metal, and they carry bows and arrows like the arrows we saw in the opening credit sequence, just as deadly if aimed at the wrong place. Once they hold up his newspaper clipping, Eric looks back at his wife. He knows that no matter how this goes, that life doesn't exist to him anymore. As Nina freaks out, her powers really start manifesting, and she reaches her hand out toward her father, just like Eric did his mother in Auschwitz. His wife and daughter are accidentally killed, and Eric uses Nina's locket to kill everyone. And honestly, I don't think we can blame him here. After everything he's been through, everyone he's lost, he truly is the most tragic of all these characters. Notice that as Nina dies, the birds she has been calling to her scatter and fly away. An extended scene would have shown Magneto singing the lullaby he sang to Nina earlier, here over their dead bodies. In the animated series, when it came to Magneto's backstory,
really
the writers weren't allowed actually to mention Hitler, the Nazis, or the Holocaust, which was the case with a lot of cartoons in the 80s and 90s.
That part was so sad. Like, honestly. W. Hi, Quest. Thank you, Quest. 44 months. That's huge. Like, I don't even know how long it is. A lot of months. I appreciate you. How's your night? What are you up to? I was supposed to have been playing Hogwarts Legacy, but the game was like lagging, so I was like, you know what? Just forget it. Forget it. I'll try to play maybe next week. But thank you.
90s. Really, they just made oblique references to Eric and Charles meeting after a war. And Charles said that, for some, war is never really over.
Remnants of the army that had so brutally occupied his small country returned. Attempting to retake it, he'd lost his family when those people overran his country. Consumed by rage, he tried to destroy them.
So Eric losing his wife and daughter in the woods like this is kind of similar to those moments in the animated series. Apocalypse meets a young Aurora Monroe, Storm, played here by Alexandra Shipp. This mohawk look was a favorite from the comics, and we got to see it in an episode of the animated series that was about an alternate timeline. Storm robbing people on the streets of Cairo is also straight from the comics, although she was born from a long line of mutant Kenyan princesses. Personal tragedies left Aurora an orphan who was forced to steal to survive. Bryan Singer is a huge Star Trek fan, and after we saw Hank watching the Star Trek episode The Naked Time in Days of Future Past, here a boy watches a different episode, Who Mourns for Adonius. Whereas The Naked Time was about time travel directly tied into the plot of Days of Future Past, this episode is about a vain and vengeful god who demands to be worshipped, like this movie is. Bryan Singer has also said that he describes this version of Apocalypse as the god of the Old Testament and all that comes with that. If there isn't the order in the worship, then I'll open up the earth and swallow you whole. And that was the god of the Old Testament. Here, Apocalypse uses a TV to learn about human history, flipping quickly through the channels with his mind. There's a news report about the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, the game show The $25,000 Pyramid, what looks like a commercial for engagement rings, a news report on nuclear missiles with the headline, Will It Work?, a news clip of Magneto from the end of Days of Future Past, various militaries marching, a missile firing, a stock ticker, $100 bills, a submarine, and other instruments of war, Reagan talking about the nuclear war, the Big Buddha in Hong Kong. There's a little snippet from the old Be All That You Can Be song from Army recruitment videos at the time, military superpowers, footage of the Pope, Las Vegas, more money, and basically just a bunch of other stuff that convinces Apocalypse that the weak have taken over the earth, that they worship false gods, humanity has lost its way and must be cleansed. He kind of draws the same conclusion that Ultron draws when he goes through a similar process in that age of Ultron. So he transforms Storm into his first modern day horseman, amping up her powers and causing her hair to turn white. Charles goes with Scott to the CIA. A deleted scene would have shown Hank sending Charles off and the brothers saying goodbye to one another.
Try not to get into too much trouble while I'm gone.
I'll do my best.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
At the CIA, Charles freezes everyone in the office. Favorite trick of his that we've seen him do before, he passes by a framed picture of Ronald Reagan, just a bit of set decoration to remind audiences who was president in 1983. He reunites with Moira, who thinks that she's meeting him for the first time, and she says she's read all of his research, which means that she still had an interest in mutants and mutation, despite forgetting her time with them. Charles notices a photo of Moira's son. He's not named in the film, but this would be Kevin McTaggart, Moira's son with Joe McTaggart. In the comics, Kevin grows up to be the mutant Proteus, who has the ability to warp reality. I always want a fresh, delicious meal, but I do not always have the time to make one myself. Luckily, Factor takes care of that for me. Factor is a meal delivery service that makes eating well easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen meals right to your doorstep, so you can skip shopping, chopping, prepping, and cleaning, and just focus on eating deliciously. You've probably heard me say the same thing about HelloFresh in the past, but Factor is now owned by HelloFresh, and I switch back and forth between the two all the time. Factor meals are pre-prepared, chef-crafted, and dietitian approved. There are over 35 different options a week to choose from, including keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and more. Plus, there are over 55 nutrition-packed add-ons that help make your weekly meal planning even more delicious. Plus, Factor meals are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. You can go from, yeah, I guess I'm hungry, to having a fantastic meal at the speed of Mystique and
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Nightcrawler visit Caliban. In the comics, he was a Morlock with the ability to sense and locate other mutants. His appearance in the film is a nod to the fact that he was chosen twice by Apocalypse to be one of his horsemen. He's played here by Tomas Lamarcky, and this character pops up again in Logan, played by comedian Stephen Merchant. Mystique pays Caliban for papers and passage for Nightcrawler. Caliban's bodyguard is Psylocke, played by Olivia Munn. She actually auditioned for the role of Vanessa in Deadpool, and that audition got her this role instead. We saw a different version of Psylocke in The Last Stand, played by Mei Ling Melancon. Hank gives Scott a pair of sunglasses. An extended version of the scene had Hank giving Scott more sciencey sounding info about the glasses. There was a bunch of deleted and extended scenes here that could have shown a longer conversation between Scott and Jean at the tree, more of the conversation between Hank and Mystique as they walk through the halls, and Jubilee talking with Kurt as she gives him a tour of the mansion.
Where are you from?
Beverly Hills.
Ah, the hills. It must be beautiful. I've never been to the mountains.
It sucks that so much of Jubilee was cut out of the final film, but at least they got her clothes right for this one. There was also an extended scene with more of Scott convincing Jean to cut school and go to the mall. I like that when he's convinced them, Scott asks, where does he keep his cars? Which means he's totally gonna steal one of Charles's cars, just like Wolverine stole his motorcycle in the first film. When Apocalypse, Psylocke, and Storm go to find Angel, he's listening to Metallica's Four Horsemen. In the comics and animated series, when he's turned into a horseman, Angel's skin turns blue. That gets a shout out here when he's bathed in blue light. He is turned into Archangel, the Horseman Death. Storm is famine, Psylocke is pestilence, and later Magneto becomes war. Although Singer also likened Apocalypse to a cult leader and also saw his followers here represented 4 pillars of a cult, with Magneto representing the political faction, Archangel representing the military faction of the Guardians, Storm representing the youth faction, and Psylocke representing the sexual component, since many cult leaders sexualize their position. In the comics, Archangel was an OG horseman and Psylocke became one in the Uncanny X-Force comic. The animated series also had Archangel as a horseman, and in X-Men Evolution, both Storm and Magneto were horsemen at one point.
Like
Hank shows Raven the Blackbird he's been building, and she comments on the fact that he's been building a warplane at a school.
No, I think we should hope for the best.
I feel like she should be able to do a lot more in
I think the world needs the X-Men.
This positions Hank firmly in the middle of Charles and Eric when it comes to the mutant-human relations. Eric wants a war with the mutants, and Charles wants peace, but Hank feels that to have peace, they must prepare for war. Eric goes to his factory to murder everyone, but before he gets a chance, Apocalypse shows up and does it for him, and it's just so gruesome and horrible. Men trapped in the ground still twitch. Then Apocalypse brings Eric back to Auschwitz and powers him up so that he can tear that horrible place to the ground. After Eric asks who he is, he responds,
Elohim, Shen, Ra. I've been called many names.
Yes, Elohim is the Hebrew word for the gods or godhood. He was the god of Israel in the Old Testament. Shen is the Chinese word involving a deity or god or a spirit. Ra is the Egyptian god of the sun. At the Maximoff house, Peter still lives in his mom's basement, although he's changed up the decor a bit since the 70s. He has a Rush poster on the wall, obviously a little joke since all he does is Rush. Later on during his rescue sequence, he also wears a Rush shirt. Like there's also a Ms. Pac-Man arcade game. I wonder if he stole this since last time there was a whole bunch of stuff that he had stolen. He's wearing a t-shirt with the $6 million man on it. At one point, Singer was developing a film adaptation of that TV show. He watches a news report about Magneto, his dad, but switches it to Knight Rider when his mom walks in. In Days of Future Past, he didn't know yet that the guy he sprung out of the Pentagon jail was his dad, but clearly he's figured it out since then. Maybe his mom told him. At the mall, the group just saw Return of the Jedi. Jubilee says that Empire is still the best. Vanessa also made a reference to Empire and Deadpool, so 2016 was just a big year for Empire love.
You ever seen that really old movie? Empire Strikes Back?
And Gene says this.
Well, at least we can all agree the third one's always the worst.
Yes, this is an obvious dig at X-Men The Last Stand, but in hindsight, it kind of ended up biting Bryan Singer in the ass since he considered Apocalypse to be the third of a trilogy with this movie. It was also the worst of those 3 films. The theater is also showing Up the Academy, which was a 1980 movie starring Robert Downey Sr. Movies coming soon are Romancing the Stone, which starred Michael Douglas, and Revenge of the Nerds. Jubilee wears a t-shirt that says Bring on the Night, which is a song by The Police, and Nightcrawler wears a red leather jacket similar to the one Michael Jackson wore in the music video for Thriller. There was a lot more stuff at the mall that ended up getting cut, like them going to the arcade and Jubilee using her powers, which would have been cool because her accidentally wrecking an arcade game at the mall was in the pilot episode of the animated series. There was stuff with them drinking slush puppies at the food court and Nightcrawler getting brain freeze, and at a record store where Scott would have taken out a Dazzler album. There was also a scene of Nightcrawler breakdancing. Charles and Raven reunite and debate whether anything has really changed for mutants. Singer said that, quote, Charles is living in a kind of blissful world that often the rich do, and it's going well for him. Raven sees a darker world, a world that is not yet fixed. There was a cutscene right after this with Moira looking at the mansion and saying that she swears she's been there before. There's another cutscene later when she's riding the jet and looking at Beast where she says he's bringing up all the memories of something that she can't recall. All this to show that her brain was fighting what Charles had done to erase their time together. Raven tells Charles about Eric, and he uses Cerebro to locate him and greets him with, hello, old friend, which is how they greet one another many times throughout the films. Using Cerebro was a huge mistake though, because it allows Apocalypse to hijack it, connect with, and take control of specific members of all the world powers and fire every nuke straight up, taking him out of play. We get a cameo from Stan Lee and his wife Joan Lee. Stan Lee's wife is also big in the world of comics. She voiced Madam Web in the 90s animated Spider-Man series. The music playing as Apocalypse hijacks Cerebro is Symphony No. 7 in A major, Opus 92, to Allegretto by Edward Lindenberg, as Eric tells Alex to wreak havoc and destroy Cerebro. Apocalypse says,
You can fire your arrows from the Tower of Babel, but you can never strike gold!
The unique sound of Apocalypse's voice was created using a mixture of different sounds, and according to Bryan Singer, was designed that way because, quote, he's bearing the souls of many lives and many characters. He has contained within him many voices, all taken from various ranges and tones. Apocalypse goes to the mansion and kidnaps Charles, and Alex tries to blast him. He ends up dying, but everyone else is saved by Peter, who shows up just in time, and we get this movie's slow motion Quicksilver rescue sequence. This time it's set to the Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. This sequence lasts for 3 minutes, but it took 20 days to film, and it is filled with just crazy little details. Like Peter is eating a Twinkie when he shows up, his love of snack foods is on display in Days of Future Past, his room had dozens and dozens of boxes of stolen snack cakes, he's always eating because he burned so many calories, just like he did with the bullets in Days of Future Past. He moves the shrapnel aside with just a finger. He takes the time to also save a goldfish and this pizza-eating dog. There are some yellow and gray curtains in one student's room that look similar to Wolverine's curtains when he woke up in the 70s. Those curtains were themselves a nod to his brown and yellow Uncanny X-Men 139 suit. Peter pauses, of course, to drink some tab. One student has a Rocky Horror Picture Show poster on the wall that reads a different set of jaws over the red-lipped mouth. After moving everyone outside, they all seem kind of sick or just out of sorts, like Magneto did when Peter first did this to him in Days of Future Past, and the mansion explodes. And Deadpool Negasonic Teenage Warhead does comment on the fact that this mansion is always doing that. Look, I'll say that these 3 minutes are very fun to watch. They clearly went into this movie knowing that they were going to do this sequence. I still just personally approve the simpler time in a bottle sequence from Days of Future Past because it's more confined, things still move slowly, so he's not like completely freezing time like he is here. I mean, despite that the mansion is exploding here, we just don't get a sense that anyone is actually at threat. And the fact that it lasts so long just elevates Quicksilver to be too much of a god in this sequence. Okay, so William Stryker shows up here, played once again by Josh Hellman, and he takes Moira, Hank, Peter, and Raven with him. Stryker's now Colonel, upgraded from a Major he was the last time we saw him. Jean controls the soldiers' minds so that they do not see her, or Scott, or Nightcrawler, move that we saw Charles do in First Class. Jean even touches her temple in the exact same way that Charles does when he uses his powers. Apocalypse uses Charles to deliver a telepathic message to everyone on Earth, but Charles sends another message directly to Jean, letting her know where they are. He also tweaks Apocalypse's message of those with the greatest power, this Earth will be yours, to those with the greatest power, protect those without. And Apocalypse gives him some roll and stink eye. A deleted scene would have shown Charles trying to appeal to Storm, who he can sense is different than the others.
You're not a killer.
You don't know me. You didn't grow up in a place where superstition and dark religion hold a lot more sway than your degrees, Professor.
At the facility where Stryker is keeping everyone, Jean unleashes a practically feral Wolverine, and he is in his weapon.
If you're a new nursing grad taking the next generation NCLEX, then I want you to watch this quick video because I'm going to show you how to pass on your very first attempt using NCLEX Bootcamp.
X gear from the comics. This cameo, while awesome, does raise a few questions. First off, the last time we saw him, chronologically speaking, he was being raised from the Potomac by Mystique disguised as Stryker. So how did the real Stryker get a hold of him to perform the weapons plus procedure on him? I'm assuming that, since his look is more similar to the comics, the story of how he lost his memory is the same way as it is in the comics, but instead of Stryker's magic adamantium bullet, it was actually his mind protecting him from mental stress. Also, since Jean gives him back a small piece of his memories, is he going to remember her as a teenager? I guess it's best not to think of him being in love with a woman he met when she was just like 17, and just kind of focus on how cool Wolverine looks, killing all those guards. Bryan Singer cameos as the one who fires a machine gun and then dies off screen, his blood spraying back into frame. As Jean goes to touch Wolverine's face, he grabs her arm the same way he did when they first met in X-Men, and he regained consciousness to find her tending to him. I can't tell, but it sounds like the voice that whispers Logan is Famke Janssen and not Sophie Turner. Or maybe Turner was just channeling Famke Janssen's voice here, trying to do an older voice. And then Wolverine runs off into the wilderness in nothing but his shorts and a mullet. I love how Stryker sees that Weapon X has escaped and just quietly dips out. He's like shitting his pants at this point. Mystique tells everyone that she and Hank are the only ones left of the original X-Men. That's because Darwin died in First Class. Havoc, obviously, we just saw die, and the rest died between First Class and Days of Future Past when they were experimented on by Bolivar Trask. Magneto destroys a whole bunch of shit. The ship he raises from the ocean floor is USS Indianapolis, which is the one that Robert Shaw talks about in his speech in Jaws. Jaws is Bryan Singer's favorite film. He also put a little nod to Jaws in X2. Pyro's lighter had a shark on it. Singer's production company, Bad Hat Harry, is actually taken from a line in Jaws. That's some Bad Hat Harry, when Brody snaps at that old man on the beach. As Apocalypse tries to transfer his consciousness into Charles, causing his baldness, the Horsemen and the X-Men fight. James McAvoy actually shaved his head for First Class before finding out that the film was set in the 60s and they wanted him to have hair. This time he shaved it correctly. Amidst the rubble, there are billboards for Michelin tires and Sinalco Cola, that is the oldest soft drink brand in Europe. Mystique makes a heartfelt speech to Magneto about how he has more family than he knows, but Peter chickens out on telling him that he's his son. Storm and Scott face off. These two will eventually lead the X-Men together. Eric flashes back through his relationship with Charles and realizes Mystique is right. Peter's super speed fights Apocalypse, but Apocalypse adjusts, which is crazy, and then breaks his leg. Mystique poses a Psylocke to try to stop him, but Apocalypse chokes her out. There was a controversial billboard depicting this scene that ended up being taken down because because people felt it glorified violence against women. When Storm sees her hero about to be killed, she realizes she's on the wrong side of this. Charles enters Apocalypse's mind and mind fights him. Apocalypse grows larger, which was one of his abilities in the comics and animated series. Magneto stops Apocalypse by putting a big X of metal in his path. Everyone combines their powers to take him on, including Storm, but they're still outmatched until Charles convinces Jean to unleash her inner power. As she does, a big, fiery phoenix spreads out behind her. Before he's destroyed, Apocalypse looks at Jean and says, all has been revealed. Charles gives Moira back her memories from first class, and she's honestly more chill about it than I would be. If I found out someone had mind wiped me, Jean and Eric use their powers to rebuild the mansion. Quicksilver is sporting a cast with a ton of names and pictures scribbled on it, including a doodle of an arcade game. The names Danny M and MM. Also, Evan is on there for Evan Peters. It looks like Bryan Singer signed his name, and I love Rush in big letters across the middle. His Rush shirt has been swapped out for an Atari shirt, though. He and Storm decide to stick around the school. But Eric says goodbye to Charles, who is now in the X-wheeled wheelchair from the first two films, and he's also now in his very professor-y three-piece suit and tie. Eric says,
doesn't it ever wake you up in the middle of the night? The feeling that one day they'll come for you and your children.
This is the same exact thing they had said to each other at the end of the original X-Men film.
Doesn't it ever wake you in the middle of the night? The feeling that someday they will come for you and your children.
And Charles says to him, goodbye, old friend. Again,
Goodbye,
another
old
repeated phrase among these two. And then Mystique sets up the group for some training in the Danger Room. The white panel in the center of her uniform is an homage to her white sleeveless dress look from the comics. Nightcrawler is also in his Origins comic accurate costume. And finally, Scott gets his blue and yellow costume and visor based on Jim Lee's 90s comic run. And all of them face off against some repurposed Sentinels. A deleted scene from earlier would have shown Hank giving Scott his visor.
It's just one big visor.
It is, yeah.
You want me to wear it on my face? I just hope the other kids don't start calling me Cyclops.
Other than the fact that it seems like Mystique is leading the group, I was really excited to see this particular lineup and these particular costumes at the end of the movie. I know a lot of people were down on X-Men Apocalypse, but this moment right here, along with the Wolverine scene, elements of the X-Mansion explosion scene, what Ty Sheridan and Sophie Turner were bringing to the roles, I honestly could get on board with it. But unfortunately, this movie will always just be overshadowed by the fact that this was just kind of the breaking point for Bryan Singer's relationship with the X-Men franchise. Everything was really starting to come out about Bryan Singer around this time, and specifically the studio just said enough is enough with the fact that Bryan Singer would just be missing for days at a time from the set. And even though the DGA almost never does this, I just really believe Simon Kinberg deserves a co-director credit for what he did for this movie. But then again, you could say, hey, he got enough of a reward for being allowed to direct Dark Phoenix, and we saw what he did with that. We're going to talk about Dark Phoenix in the future. I'm not even convinced that that's entirely his fault. It's largely his fault, but not entirely. But we get this insane post-credit scene for X-Men Apocalypse, where a group of men are cleaning up the bullets left behind at Stryker's facility where Wolverine escaped, and they recover his x-rays in a blood sample and put it in a briefcase with one green sample and one yellow sample. And as the briefcase closes, we see the name Essex Corp, which is a reference to Nathaniel Essex, aka Mr. Sinister. His name was seen on Stryker's computer next to, and he is a huge X-Men villain. He's a geneticist who became obsessed with manipulating DNA to create the most powerful and perfect mutant, and Mr. Sinister is rumored to be the primary antagonist of the X-Men 97 series on Disney+. Now, in the film Logan, it's revealed that Laura, X-23, was created using Wolverine's blood. And in Deadpool, many people believe that the serum used on Wade Wilson was derived from Wolverine's DNA. So there is just a lot of stuff that these shady suit guys might be doing with those files. Okay, so next week I will be breaking down 2017's Logan, which might be the finest film.
Logan is next. I can't wait to watch that. That was gonna start right there. And that is the end of that reaction video. Hi. I felt like Apocalypse was not that bad. Like, I felt like that was solid enough. That was a solid X-Men movie. It's definitely solid. Like I said, out of those 4 new X-Men movies they made, definitely First Class and Days of Future Past was like obviously like the best ones out of those 4 or whatever. But I feel like Apocalypse was solid. It was solid. Dark Phoenix, a lot of people was not fucking with the Dark Phoenix. The fact that that's only 25 minutes is fucking crazy. I'm just like, just love Marvel, so I thought the Dark Phoenix was okay. I thought was pretty decent as well. I don't know. I can never say that like a Marvel movie was bad. I can never say that. Even the movie, what's that? Eternals. I can't even say that that was like so bad, because I feel like that movie was. I feel like they really had like some cool stuff inside the movie. Definitely did. Definitely did. Yep. So Logan is next. I'm gonna try to watch this one before the week is out. Like I said, my birthday stream is Wednesday, so I don't think if I'm gonna watch this, it's gonna have to be tomorrow on stream. Yeah, watch it tomorrow. Then we got Deadpool 2, The Dark Phoenix, then Deadpool 3. Even though I already watched Deadpool 3 breakdown, just watch it over. I'm like, that was something I was supposed to have edited and posted when I first watched that. I don't know when it was. Last year or the year before? I think the year before. Well, when did Deadpool 3 come out? Deadpool 3 came out, was it 2024? I don't even fucking know, to be honest. I'm like, the years just going by so fast. I'm like, some of these years be like bunched up together in my brain. But SMG, hi there. I'm still trying to figure out how Jean Grey has the Phoenix Force in this movie. If in the next X-Men movie with that series in Dark Phoenix, it showed her going to space, and that's how she got the Dark Phoenix. So was that before? Like, is that shit supposed to... That's not before. That's not before. Like, this is definitely, like, in order. I was trying to say, like, how did she... Like, she wasn't born with it. She wasn't born with it, right? Like, that's something that she got from space. She got the Dark Phoenix from space. But in the original X-Men movies, they did make it seem like she was, like, born with it. But even in the breakdown of the original 3, the third one, he even said she wasn't born with it. It was some space. Yeah, I'm just confused. Yeah, that... I guess that was the only way that they were going to fucking win. If the Phoenix Force came out. Like, we just make this shit appear in this movie. I don't know. And then seeing Wolverine in here was pretty fire, because I'm like, they did capture his ass at the end of the last one when he went back in time. His ass is confused as fuck. Very confused. Okay, game. I'm supposed to play a lot of shit today. I don't know if I even have time for all this stuff. I mean, I could play a few games of Rivals. I don't think I streamed Rivals not last week. I'm not even sure. If I did, it was only like one time. I think it's only so many games that I can play on stream. I'm only streaming like 3 days now, technically, since I started school. But I think still, like, even 3 to 4 days. I'm like, all the shit I play. I gotta get those batteries for this keyboard. This keyboard is already like, it's dying. I just got this keyboard yesterday. And it was good though. Yeah, I'm still streaming on YouTube. me see. Was Jean Grey born with the Phoenix Force? No, exactly. She was not born with Phoenix Force. It literally says no. She was, yeah. She merged with the Phoenix Force later in her life, typically portrayed as a result of a near-death experience in space while trying to save the X-Men. That is the original story. I'm sure that was also in the comics. I believe I've seen that in the comics. Okay, but whatever. So early assumption suggests the Phoenix was merely her own power unlocked. Right. Like she always had like that type of power within her. Ross Sterling treats Phoenix Force as a distinct cosmetic entity that she hosts. Right. She allowed the public reports to merge. Her party damaged space shuttle. Okay. Just had to double check. Damn. She said I do, I did, and I'm done. And I'm just scrolling. Should I start TikTok? I don't have the camera for TikTok. Trying to see if I got the camera on. I guess. Yeah. I'm like, it don't make no sense if I'm gonna stream with the cam. I might as well stream with the cam. For TikTok as well. If I be smoking, I don't really feel like turning off the camera. I don't know. TikTok do not play. They do not play. Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that later. It's about to be 12 o'clock. They're always updating some shit. Like always. So it's already giving me signs. Signs of no TikTok. Even this is bugging. Ask me, do I want to get in Discord? For what? I'm so confused. Why that person said that? It's because this shit is installing, so I will be back. I'm like, y'all can't even see this. What's what? Y'all not see this. Shit bugging.